For most of Delaware's colonial history, it was often referred to simply as the three lower counties of Pennsylvania. Even after gaining a separate legislature in the early 1700s, it still remained in a weird personal union with Pennsylvania, where Pennsylvania's governor would also be the governor of Delaware. They didn't gain full independence from PA until 1776, the same time that they gained independence from Great Britain. Even as its own state, Delaware kept strong ties with PA. Politicians would often go back and forth and work in the governments of both states. Thomas McCain was a Confederation congressman representing Delaware at the same time he was Chief Justice of Pennsylvania's Supreme Court. John Dickinson served in Pennsylvania and Delaware's General Assemblies, and he went directly from being the President of Delaware to being President of Pennsylvania. The tradition honestly continues today. President Biden, a PA native, was a US Senator from Delaware before becoming Vice President. Ties between the two states was backed up by simple economics. Philadelphia was only a short boat ride up the Delaware River. This was the most densely populated area in the country at the time. It was a huge market to reach. Politics in Delaware were rooted in the question of independence from Great Britain. Tories were a very large political force in Sussex County, enough so that they formed a political movement to oppose pro-independence Whigs. Of course, the Whigs prevailed, leading some radical Tories to launch uprisings against the revolutionaries throughout the war. These divisions remained after peace was made. The Whigs and Tories were at each other's throats every single election. Gangs of armed men on both sides would block the entrance into polling places. When the Tories refused to pass a Whig bill that would print paper money to help poorer farmers, the Whigs seized the Tories' property. So you'd think that when the Constitution was proposed, the Whigs and the Tories would be up in arms and ignite riots across the state. But surprisingly, everyone seemed really chill with the proposal. Delaware's delegation to the federal convention had been instructed that they should only support the proposal if it guaranteed equal representation for all the states. After adopting the Connecticut Compromise, Delawareans had nothing to fear. They would be equally represented in the Senate, despite the fact that they were the least populous state in the Union. As a cherry on top, the new government would prohibit the states from placing trade barriers on their neighbors. This meant that all of Delaware's trade with Philadelphia was now tariff-free. Basically everyone was on board with ratification. Everyone except, of course, Richard Henry Lee. After meeting with opponents of the Constitution in Pennsylvania, he continued his little anti-Constitution tour by traveling to Wilmington. He gave a speech where he tried to stir up some opposition to the Constitution, and he distributed some anti-Constitution pamphlets, but impact was minimal. The vast majority of Delaware was still heavily Federalist. So it was even more bizarre when gangs of armed Tories still tried to stop Whigs from voting for delegates in Sussex County. Whig leaders realized that both parties were pro-ratification, so they advised their faction to just stay home to avoid bloodshed. The convention met at the Golden Fleece Tavern in Dover on December 3rd. They were sent a copy of the Constitution, as well as a petition from Sussex. Some Whigs were not happy that they had been pushed to the sidelines by force. They requested that the delegates call off the convention until another less violent election could be held. This was a tricky situation. On one hand, political violence, bad. But on the other, what was the point? There was an understanding that Delaware would benefit from the Constitution, and the Whigs weren't really concerned with which party would be doing the actual ratifying. If they held another election, Pennsylvania and maybe even New Jersey would beat them to the punch. Delaware wanted to be first. We don't know what else they debated since the official record has been almost entirely lost, but we can assume that they didn't have much to disagree on. The convention met on Monday, and by Friday they were ready to take a vote on ratification. Delaware ratified the Constitution by a vote of 30-0. They became the first state to ratify the Constitution, edging out Pennsylvania by just 5 days, and forever immortalizing Little Delaware as the first state. So by mid-December, 2 states had already ratified the Constitution, only 7 to go before the Constitution would be legally binding. New Jersey was up next.